A Man in a Mare's World, Chapter 2, Scorn.
Have you finally come up with a name to call you by? I do not wish to call you human by times nigh.
Scorn, Zakora. Call me Scorn. Sunset loomed over Equestria, blanketing it with a beautiful orange hue in the sky as the town was working into its evening hours and shifts. Ponies just walked about as if it were daytime, but now they were only just getting the last remaining bits of items and shopping wares that they wanted and or needed before heading home and turning in. Standing where he was earlier before today, Scorn looked over Ponyville, his ribs and veins lashing and flowing from his arms and chest. His cape was wrapped around him like a cloak, giving the impression that those chains and wires made from his bones and veins were parasitic tendrils. With his wide eyes focused on the sunset, he walked forward, kicking up a little bit of dirt with every step of his boots. Stopping at the top of the hill, he turned his gaze down to Ponyville, glaring into the town as he threw his arms out, the chains and wires slithering back into his body as two spheres of red, electrifying magic engulfed his hands. Throwing his cape back, he jumped into the air and dove for Ponyville, cruising over the shopping district with his cape turning back into wings. His aim was simple: look for any evildoers to help solidify the want for these creatures that pushed him around to fear, yet revere in his name. Hovering up to the peak of Town Hall, he grasped the tip of it as he surveyed the town. Given his costume, he was able to blend with the shadows nicely, only ever visible when his stripes would glow in response to magical usage. Keeping his eyes to the ground, he watched as every pony packed in and called it a day. Workers left, and soon managers did as well, leaving the stores to be locked up for reopening tomorrow. Seeing nothing out of the ordinary yet, Scorn sat back, taking a breath as he watched the sunset. Well, so much for this town being a hotspot for trouble.
Come on, hurry! Quiet down, sister, we're coming!
Scorn perked up as he stood on his feet again, looking towards the sounds of voices. He blinked as he watched several mares, all disguised or masked, going into Ponyville Bank a block down. Finally. Scorn grinned under his mask and silently flew over Ponyville, landing on the roof of the bank. Looking in through a single-pane skylight, he watched as these mares used their magic to cut open the ABTM, automated bit teller machine, tossing the panels aside and gathering the coins from within. There were 4 ABTMs in total, one for each of the robbers. Knowing his opening when he sees it, he gently opened the skylight and used his cape to lower himself in. He didn't make a sound when he touched the ground and remained there behind the masked mares as the shadows gave him a menacing edge to his appearance.
Oh, magic makes this too easy. I told you this was worth it. With this at our disposal, we can hit 5 other places tonight. Now you're just reading my mind.
Scorn hummed as he rose his head, his veins coming out and hardening into tangible wires once more. Is that a fact now? All 4 mares spun around instantly, their eyes widening behind their masks when they saw him.
Holy shit! Who the fuck is this?
Scorn chuckled as he lifted his hands, letting the wires writhe. Your angel of death awaits. They all stood up and advanced on Scorn immediately, making him smirk as he was finally gonna get some action. Throwing his wires forward, he wrapped them around the crowbar one of them was holding. Tucking it to the side, he checked 2 of the 4 mares with it, snapping the second one's jaw with the force alone. Raising his other arm, he blocked the elbow strike coming from the 3rd mare, wrapping his wires around her arm and forcing her to send a punch to the 4th, dropping her to the floor. Lunging into the air, the cape suspended Scorn as he used his feet to literally pedal the mare into the wall. Pressing himself against the surface, he hung himself upside down while reeling back, dodging a fist flung at him from the 1st mare that tried to seize him. Grabbing her arm as she flung around another haymaker, he spotted the 2nd mare charging her horn. Using his wires, he threw the 1st mare into her, tumbling them both to the floor as the 3rd ignited her horn, ripping him from the ceiling and holding him into the air. Very sneaky of you. I can see that you're the smart one. The 3rd mare smiled at that, happy to get the compliment enough to be distracted. Stringing his wires across the ceiling, he tagged them through a lone desk in the corner of the room, yanking it back and shattering it to splinters up against her back. Landing back on the ground, he approached the downed mortals that he planned to use as examples. Grinning, he manipulated his cape to cover their faces. Bursting his chains from his chest, he let them poke and prod them, drawing down their stomachs and legs as Scorn grinned, only widening at the possibilities. What way could set the best foot forward? In his musings, he was unprepared for one of them to start firing magic wildly. Ducking under a shot, he kicked her back as the others were flung into the corner of the room, knocked unconscious as his wild attacker shot several dozen beams of magical energy everywhere. Leaning back from the last one, he turned to face her, only to stop when he heard an explosion behind him. Spinning around, he saw that the bolt of magic had struck a bakery across the street, most likely hitting something flammable, as the whole place went up in flames. Tensing at the sight of the burning gingerbread house, he looked down at the only awake criminal. Stabbing one of the chains through her leg, he dragged her along with him as he sprinted out of the door of the bank, rushing towards the bakery known as Sugar Cube Corner by the sign. Dumping her at a fountain, literally, he amped up his speed and launched himself through a window. Rolling to a stop, he heard multiple screams and cries coming from upstairs. Running up to meet whoever was in here, he came across a chubby blue mare in the hallway above the bakery's main floor. Behind her was a lankier yellow mare, someone who appeared to be her wife. Same-sex couples. Well, considering this world, I'm not surprised, nor against it. He then rose up his hand. You two, to me, now! The two adults followed his voice, not caring about how it sounded. Pointing down the stairs, he directed them as he ushered them along. Go through the main door and don't look back. Are there any others inside the building?
Yes, my babies! I couldn't get to them, the door's blocked! And Pinkie Pie, help her too!
Scorn nodded as he rushed down the hall, finding the blocked door first and violently kicking it open. Seeing the two foals in a smoking crib, he took them out before the fire could reach them, bringing them to his arms, while gently wrapping them in his wires. Hearing coughing coming from the door, he saw a pink mare with a fluffy mane stumble in. She wore charred pajamas that were decorated with multicolored balloons. Her blue eyes were tearful and red, the inhalation of the smoke causing her to cough violently. Once he had the two foals in his arms, he backed up to her. Come on, wrap your arms around my shoulders! The mare attempted to speak, but only coughed some more as she complied. Lifting her up so she could do the same with her legs, Scorn ran for the window, shattering it as the roof burst with another explosion. Unable to glide through the air with his cape restricted, Scorn could only brace as he hit the ground with enough force to kick up a lot of dirt. Standing up, he shook the mare holding him off, letting her stand on her own as he handed the couple their children. Stepping back from them, he watched as the couple cried over their foals, and even letting the pink mare join the hug, and patting her back as she continued coughing. The blue mare looked towards the bakery as it collapsed.
Oh no. Sugar Cube Corner. It's ruined.
The lanky yellow mare frowned sadly.
All of our hard work. Gone.
Scorn gave them a sympathetic look beyond his mask. Then he lowered his head before turning it to the last criminal that was awake. Storming towards her as she tried to crawl away, she looked up and gasped as Scorn stood over her, feeling his eyes burn a hole right through her as he shook with unbridled rage. You threatened the lives of the ponies around you. All for a few petty bits! His cape flew over his head, snaking around and wrapping around her head and lifting her up into the air. And you threaten the lives of foals! He smashed his fists into the ground, staying knelt as his wires went through the dirt and up into the mare, wrapping her up tightly and cutting into her skin. Her screams were muffled under the cape as he ripped up his arms, tearing back his wires and skinning the poor mare while dropping her from the weaponized attire. Retracting the tangible cloth, he flared it out as it came back to his backside, encasing the skinned mare with it and hiding her from the world. Another scream came as a pulse of red flashed, then he released her, revealing only a skeleton, with flesh and chunks of meat slushing onto the dirt. Glaring down at the dead mare, he lifted up his mask and spat on her bones. Your life's not worth a bucket of piss. He lowered his mask as he flew up into the air, landing on the rooftop of a nearby building just as a crowd began to form. Luckily, they didn't see him there, nor leave. They were horrified with a corpse though, so that was the first step of getting the message across. Watching them all converge and express concern for the mare Scorn rescued, he turned to leave. But he jumped as he found the pink mare behind him. Jumping backwards, and almost attacking her, he stopped himself once he recognized her. She no longer wore her pajamas and instead opted for a pink tank top with black shorts. Casual clothing, it seemed. She was nervously poking at her index fingers, looking up at him for a second before looking back down. Her fuzzy mane was deflated, somewhat, and her coat's color had a gray tint to it. Wait, how did you—
I just wanted to say thank you. For what you did, that was super duper nice.
Nice? There's nothing nice about this situation. Had I not been there, you and your family would have been roasted meat crammed under gingerbread wood. She nodded.
Yeah, we would, and that would have been a major bummer, especially for Pound and Pumpkin.
They both look down the street, seeing the twins now relaxed and unharmed, though Scorn doubted this won't scar them for the rest of their childhood.
My name's Pinkie Pie, and I would throw you a party, but
She motioned to the building.
I don't think any of my party favors and equipment survived.
Scorn observed her as she seemed to deflate further. Humming, he motioned to himself. Well, I don't have an official name, but most now call me Scorn. And if that building means so much to you... Scorn glanced at her before staring at the destroyed building. Looking down at his hand, he held it out toward Sugar Cube Corner, closing his eyes as his hand glowed with a gentle red aura. The building quivered, and then a bubble of sparking crimson magic surrounded it, a loud crackling boom startling the residents as it appeared. All the ponies watched this as time within the bubble seemed to go in reverse, going back to when it raged, then back to the time before it was hit by the beams of magic the mare he killed sent towards it. Once he was sure that he had the right moment, he released his spell, looking down at the building as he could hear the couple crying down below, exclaiming how their home was back. Pinkie's mane inflated once more as she, too, had tears in her eyes. I mean, public executions are one thing, but shit, dude, what Scorny Boy did over there, holy fuck. A little excessive, a little overkill, no pun intended. Now let's head on over to our healthy and very much alive donators. Top donators, Dash of Evergreen, Peter Coulthard, J-Tin Man, Darkside, and Ponyman. CourierCruz CI, Delta Omega, Strix, RuneScythe9852, Dospo, Rhyny Dragonwolf, Secret Moon, Tall Rasha, The Toilet Snake, Cerberus, Starlight Glimmer, Squiddy Boy, David E. Sanchez, Soul Dragon, Gaggy, Trey, Shadow Drake, Joe Piercy, Alex F., Rainbow Dash, Teal K. Anderson, TV Killer, and John Becker. Thank you all very much for watching this video. Live life to the fullest, and let's somehow get Scorn to get laid, because fuck dude, I think he's still a virgin.